All right, we're back on the air. Oops, you got us mid-conversation.
Yes, always the off-camera conversation.
Yeah, it's too bad we should have that conversation on the air.
Yes.
Maybe later in the show. Maybe
Yes.
one of our guests won't show up, and then we can do that. But
Yes.
Our first guest did show up. Françoise Soria is here.
Welcome.
Françoise, always great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's always great to be here, to see the studio. Very beautiful. So
And look, you got Toronto behind you. You see?
Yes, I noticed. Yes, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
We,
So,
we feel the vibe of the city. That's
exactly.
great. Yes.
Yeah. So now you're from the new Acropolis.
Yes, I'm the director of the association here in Toronto. It's called the New Acropolis, indeed. And tomorrow is a big day for us. It's a symbolic day because for us every day is Philosophy Day.
Right.
However, tomorrow, which is November 17, is the World Philosophy Day as proclaimed by the United Nations, and particularly the UNESCO, so the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Very few people know about this day, and yet it's very important.
Yeah, I think that philosophy really doesn't get enough proper respect these days.
Yeah, that's true, and it's paradoxical because at the same time there is a growing need for it, and that's why I brought those quotes from the United Nations because I found that they are very important, to understand what philosophy is. Because it's true that a lot of people have misconceptions, pejorative ideas about philosophy. They think that it's abstractions that are absolutely not relevant to life, and yet it is so relevant. But I really like the UNESCO's constitution. Their first sentence is, "Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." The way we think forms our lives and our societies.
Who said that?
So it is the first clause in the preamble of the UNESCO's constitution. It was written in 1945, and it is really like timeless wisdom.
Right.
That's really timeless wisdom. And then in 2002, this is when the first World Philosophy Day, was presented. And it was presented as the celebration of wisdom and reflection, bringing together people of all ages around this school of freedom that is philosophy. Philosophy being a school of freedom, that's wonderful. The video that you showed before, it's also very powerful. Because everything starts in the way we think, in the way we manage ourselves, but all starts, in really the way we think, and we think for ourselves. And philosophy is really about learning to think well, and that's to say to think with intelligence.
Right.
It's a great point. And I remember just my little story. Because I went to university, I took business.
Me too.
At university.
I took business in university.
Where did you go?
Well, it was in France at the time, but I studied business. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's interesting because, as you said, and as we see with Plato, business is a tool, is a means.
Yeah.
Our societies get sick when business becomes the goal, the purpose, when money becomes the ultimate goal of life. Whereas business can be a healthy management of resources.
Absolutely.
Right.
As we were saying, the revolution, if we need one, should be a business, right?
Yeah, well, business is an organization, so we need organization to manifest ideas,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when I was in school, there was sort of the zeitgeist of the business students was they'd look at the philosophy students or the music students and kind of dismiss them as being airy-fairy, abstract, not practical, not things worthwhile to study.
Yeah.
But if we look at what was done, the tradition of education, especially in Britain, where they would train the best and the brightest, would have a background in philosophy first, right? The classics, and they would understand history, and they would understand the origins of our culture, and then be able to do whatever they did in life, whether they went into the military or whether they went into business or government. They would bring that understanding with them, and it seems to me that often we're losing that, and we're not teaching. Just a crazy example, and this may sound unbelievable. I was last time I had a job was we were having a meeting about something, And I had some younger people in this meeting with me, and I referenced, just as a reference, the Tower of Babel as a metaphor or something, right? And they didn't know what it was. So, so in a sense, that's an inability to communicate because of a lack of understanding of an essential cultural reference.
Yeah, and like what you say is interesting because indeed philosophy, in a way, it's understandable that it doesn't have like a very, positive image because it has become, in many ways, like a dry exercise, and yet philosophy in its essence, and this is how we revive it at New Acropolis in 56 countries in the world, has everything to do with the human, and it is about developing the being. And that's why philosophy is not even like a discipline in itself. And philosophy in a classical manner, as we call it, because it applies to life, in fact includes science, art, sociopolitics, spirituality. And this is those facets of society that together can form communities, driven by wisdom, driven by those ideals, that are at the center of philosophy. So it's too bad that today we have like this war, and this form of exclusion between the different, like disciplines or fields of knowledge or fields of activity. But yet, those fields, they could, converge like towards like a central purpose, and that could be the fulfillment of the human being. This is truly the message here, what we talk about of the myth of the cave of Plato. And that's it. It's too bad that philosophy has become isolated as a dry field of knowledge that is useless, because in many ways it's true that it has become useless. We need to revive, the true quest for wisdom, the quest for beauty, this. But when I say a quest, it's as a way of living. It's every day to feel this tension, towards that which is higher than ourselves, towards dignity, towards beauty, towards goodness, towards justice, towards that which is true. But this is demanding. It creates a tension because, just before, Erin, you were talking about when you feel a bit defeated and say, well, when we understand, it's good to go into action.
Right.
And that's the process of philosophy that we're talking about. When, like we understand a little bit more what beauty is because we find it inside us. When we understand a bit more what truth, what justice is, thanks to this process of study, reflection, discernment. But then, we want to put it into action. And that's why philosophy is action. It is to act, to bring into the world those archetypes or those ideals, that are at the center of wisdom. And this is how the world can change. Right. In fact, the true revolution, happens in the human being. It is those human beings who desire, more than just survival. And that's really the message of the myth of the cave. And at the center is education. And as you say here, it's like an education of the being. Today we are so obsessed by the doing, doing, the having, and we forget what is at the center, and that is the being. Because, if we change as human beings, the way we do things changes also. Right? And that's too bad that we are neglecting so badly, the education of the being, which is philosophy in a classical manner. It's transformative, it's transformational. If we want to transform the world, we need to transform ourselves.
Absolutely. And we kind of went there last week. We have to start at home with all our own actions as an individual. And that's the only way we're going to be able to move out and make a difference.
Well, it's true. Like, how can we build a world of solidarity, of fraternity, if we have, like a problem, living with people around us? If we are rude or disrespectful, with people we meet on the street, in a supermarket, in the bank, there's a contradiction. So yes, if we are truly in love with justice, necessarily we'll have to look within and look, what is unjust in us. And that's why Plato said, if we want justice in society, justice has to reside in the heart and the soul of each human being. Like, we cannot demand society to give us something as a collective, but also as individuals, that does not exist in us,
Right.
If we are dreaming of a world with justice, we also necessarily need to ask ourselves, but what is justice? And what does it mean, justice for the human being? And what we learn with philosophy, with Plato, justice in the human being is to put the being first, is to have our, like the instincts, what Plato calls the appetites, of the personality, that's to say the emotions, the desires, the egoistic desires, like fears, driven by intelligence, wisdom. And this is not easy. I mean, intellectually, we can all agree and say, yeah, that's nice, that's beautiful. But in everyday action, how many times our fears take control, how many times impatience takes control, how many times egoism takes control, and our beautiful dreams are under the carpet, forgotten,
Absolutely.
And so it takes an education to, to learn how to drive those wild horses, I like the allegory that Plato uses, the chariot, where the charioteer is intelligence, and there are two horses, the horses of the intellect and the horse of the intellect and the horse of the passions, and that's to say the desires, emotions. And wisdom is when intelligence drives desires, and the problem is when desires are driven by the intellect that rationalizes the most egoistic choices of life.
Right.
Well, that seems about right, Francoise.
That's really well put, and it's always one of those reminders that we need. And we're often, like you said, we're running around. We're also just reacting. There's no, Why are you always grinning at me?
I'm not grinning at you, Aaron. I'm just grinning.
Okay.
Okay, Francoise. So tomorrow's World Philosophy Day, and you guys are doing. It's so great that you guys are here in Toronto and in other cities across Canada and countries around the world, because you're bringing philosophy to the public attention, right? And tomorrow, and so is UNESCO with World Philosophy Day tomorrow, and you guys are putting on an event as part of this, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit?
Yeah, for us,
what you guys are doing?
Of course, it's very important to respond, to this call from the United Nations. As I said, for us, it's very symbolic because Acropolis has been adhering to those principles, put forth by the United Nations since 1957. So it means 54 years already, of constant action all over the world, putting philosophy to life, into action for our community. So we've responded always positively to this call. And tomorrow in Toronto, we're going to have a special event at the Center for Social Innovation. And that is going to be at 7:30. It's a Center for Social Innovation on Spadina.
Boy, I went to one of your events there before. Remember?
Yes, of course. You were there for Pierre Poulin's photography launching. That was great. We have
it was a lot
great
of fun.
Pictures of you.
Yeah. Well,
yes,
it was a really nice event.
Yeah, very inspiring.
Now, is tomorrow's event going to be every bit as much fun as that?
Sorry?
Is it going to be as much fun
Yes,
tomorrow?
absolutely, because it's going to be interactive. We're going to show some movie clips. For instance, there is a modern rendition of The Cave, and that is The Matrix. I know it's an old movie, but from our experience, in our philosophy workshops at Acropolis, all our students have seen The Matrix. This is a classic. Of course, we're talking of the first one, not the second and the third.
Not the second one.
No. But they are like in The Matrix, there are key moments that are very, very strong. And so we're going to show movie clips. We're going to have different philosophers of our association. We're going to talk. We're going to have interaction with the public. So it's going to be a very dynamic evening. And that's at 7:30. The address is 215 Spadina Avenue.
215, 215?
Yeah, it's not far from here. 215 Spadina Avenue.
And I walked there the last time
You
from
see?
here
You see, I told you.
with my friend Daryl,
You see?
whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday, Daryl.
Happy birthday, Daryl. So yes, that's and in Canada on Friday we're going to have an event also related to Plato in Montreal as well. You know, with Denis. You've met Denis Brickney, the National Director of Canada, New Acropolis Canada.
That's going to be Friday?
Yeah, Friday. So if you'd like to go to Montreal, if you understand French, you can
so it's going to be French in Montreal. Are you going?
No.
For that?
No.
I bet you wish you could.
Oh, how did you guess? Yes, if I could fly there, I would. And then in Ottawa, our city in Ottawa also is going to do something on Friday. And I can tell you that all our centers all over the world, this week is super active and dynamic because everybody is doing special events to celebrate. As I said, it's symbolic because every day for us, we are involved in bringing to life those very important values, such as justice, goodness, beauty in our communities, and that takes like a true commitment to the being, to the human being.
It's amazing.
So is it all going to be Plato all over the world, or?
No. Like each country, each city is organizing different kind of events. So it's I invite you to go to our international website because you're going to see lots of news about that. It's acropolis.org. That's the international website.
Okay.
And there you have even like news that are posted on a regular basis about what's going on. And in Canada, our website is newacropolis.ca. And this is where you'll find our 3 cities or activities advertised.
That's great. And how late does the evening go? Because it's interactive and you guys seem to have a lot going on.
So generally it's about 2 hours, like 9:30, but realistically it's 10 because very often people stay behind and there are discussions. So it's between 9:30 and 10.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
That does sound
like fun.
So
that's tomorrow, which is Thursday.
You should go and I'll live through you.
I'm just trying to. I should get one of those glasses that has HD camera, and then you can just tune in and see what I see.
That would be awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about Plato and the myth of the cave, because it seems to be one of the classic Plato things.
Well, it's a very strong myth, and what I would like to say about myths is that, like to us, myths are stories that don't exist, right?
Yeah.
However, myth means the word that speaks the truth, like in Greek. So it's interesting that with Plato's myth of the cave, we are in presence with a teaching of wisdom that is telling us about different levels of consciousness and levels of consciousness that are higher than our current one. And so it's a story that is telling us about the human journey, that's to say the possibility, and I would say even the duty of the human being to evolve. That's to say to develop intelligence, to develop spiritual inner powers. And that's why this story is far from being a little story, like to entertain, but it has very profound truth because Plato is delivering a message that is about education that is transformational, which is called in spirituality initiation. Like it's a pedagogy that is initiatic pedagogy. That's to say an education where the being awakes and is born to new levels of reality. And what Plato describes in the cave is this state of being where we are trapped, by habits. We are trapped by an identification with the materiality of life. We are trapped by even a culture, that reduces us, to robots, to machines. And here we are playing, crying, moving all over the place, but in a cave, And in the cave there are forms moving, and these are, like objects that we see only the reflections, like the shadows of that, and that is what we take for reality. And this is, like a world of lies. This is a world, governed by fear, and by, like the limits of our personalities, and above all, by this search for comfort. The cave is that. It's like this lifestyle, that is dictated by comfort, you know, like not only physical comfort, but psychological, mental. And if we just give in, you know, to this force, we become lazier and lazier. So we think less and less for ourselves. We are buying everything, like, you know, rationally, like we are precisely what, you know, like you talked about before, like the media, you know, that can be so superficial. Like it's like no true critical thinking, you know, true judgment, and we end up falling completely asleep, you know, and living life like not really as living beings, you know, with aspirations that are of a more human and spiritual nature, but like robots, conditioned by society. And Plato is telling us about this process of awakening and having the courage to live our destiny of human beings. You know? And this is really what is philosophy in the classical manner, to little by little progressively realize this human identity. So, you know, like for the ones who feel that they are more than a biological reality, that they are a being, that they are an essence, right? And that they want to develop this essence, they want to conquer the being, you know, and that's why Plato's myth is very powerful and very current. You know, it's far from being something that belongs to the past. In fact, we are in presence of a visionary. You know, like the teachings contained in this myth are telling us about the future, about who we can and we ought to become as humanity, because we are not meant, you know, like to be just in a survival mode and fighting against each other. And no, we are meant to be human beings in evolution, evolving, you know. So it's inspiring.
Wow.
So well put.
Okay, Francois, so what's going to happen in 2012? Are we going to get that galactic thing from the center of the galaxy and go to
well,
fifth density?
2012, it's going to snow in January, as Denis told you already. So.
I forgot.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But a good news, Hugh, is that Denis is coming back to Toronto in January 2012, if we are still alive.
Let's do it. Let's bring him to the show, okay?
Yes.
And we can show. We'll have we'll show the Bay Street behind, and if it's snowing that day, then people can see the snow.
And then you can tell Denis Bricknay is really a magician. He's a seer because he had predicted it.
That's what happens when you learn philosophy and use it in your everyday life, right?
Yeah, we develop common sense.
There you go. There you go.
You know, and we're going to give everybody the details about how to come to the event. So I wanted to say, though, another real practical thing about philosophy, one of the things you learn when you take philosophy in the 101 is logic, right?
Absolutely.
You learn how to think logically. And, you know, sometimes it frustrates me when I'm having a debate with someone and they are just like, they're making logical mistakes, and I'm going, how can I have a debate with this person when they can't even think logically?
And logic is developed through, you know, like developing our mental ability to think, but also through experience, because a lot of illogical thinking comes from being completely disconnected from life, from reality. And so it's easy in the mind, everything becomes possible. That's why we need this constant application of ideas, because then we have a return, a feedback. And this is how you develop logic, you know, because you have constantly the feedback of life.
And as we've said already, this is one of the most practical things you can do. If you want to have a revolution, if you want to run a business, really, this is essential stuff. And unfortunately, our schools aren't making it mandatory. So who should come to this event tomorrow, Francoise?
Everybody who feels that you know, there are more than things, than objects. Everybody who feels a little or very, you know, uncomfortable looking at our world today, because it's very socio-political, what we're going to talk about. It's about the state of the world. Anybody who feels like, as Neo says in the Matrix, there's something wrong with the world. There's something wrong with the way we are living today. There's something wrong with, you know, this movie that is pulled in front of our eyes as if it was truth. So anybody who feels that there's more, you know, to life, there's more to the human being than what we are pulled in front of our eyes every day, is welcome to join us. It's going to be a, you know, uplifting and maybe mind-boggling event, but certainly useful to enrich our community. It's important to lift a little bit the level, right, of our city.
Yeah. It does, because I think we all want to get outside of our everyday routines and, you know.
Well, this is
Find
something
that.
to do tomorrow night. If you're not
Yeah.
doing anything, you're going to meet a great bunch of people,
Yeah.
and you're going to have a lot of fun. And it's at 215 Spadina, 7:30. Is there any admission charge or anything?
Yes, there is. Yes, $15 for students and 25 regular price.
Okay. Is Lorinda going to be waiting for people when they walk in the front door so she can send them up to the right floor?
Yes, there's going to be Lorinda, there's going to be Suyong, all our team is going to be there with their big smile.
Oh,
Yes.
that's great.
And what I would like to say though
Yes.
is that all of us, we are volunteers. And like if we charge costs, it's really to pay for the bills
Well,
of the
and-
association. We
I-
are a non-profit association. All of us, we are volunteers. It's
Well,
a labor
plus
of love.
there's probably going to be snacks and
Yeah.
refreshments than there were the last time. And it was an awesome event. And so, you know, something to do tomorrow night.
Yeah.
A great thing to do tomorrow night.
Yes,
So
thank you.
thank you, Francoise, for
Thank you
coming in
again,
today.
Erin.
Newacropolis.ca.
Yeah, newacropolis.ca is our Canadian website.
Right.
This is where you're going to have all the information about the event.
So people can go on that website. There it is right there. And they can sign up and become, you know, get involved with you guys. And whether you're in Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa,
Yeah,
they can get involved, right?
absolutely. And all over the world, we are there in 56 countries.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Francoise.
you.
Always
Thank
so
you.
much fun to
I
have
wish
you
we
on.
had more time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I can come back.
Okay.
that'd be great.
So let's take a little break, Aaron. We're going to come back with Braz Menezes. Yes. He'll correct my pronunciation.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about the Matata trilogy. So let's take the break, and we'll be right back. Liquid Lunch is continuing on Wednesday. We'll be right back.
3 more days you had to stay, but you never felt more far away. Out of sight and out of mind, my baby left me far behind. Now's my turn to make you see, ain't never getting no loving from me. Tell me lies and tell me truths, but make your mind what you wanna do.